Hello everybody and welcome. It's me, GhostCritic, back with another of my weekly shots at the SoftLands podcast. Here I am every week reviewing, chatting about some little tidbits of information about every single issue of my favourite comic book run, The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. And this week it's all about the music. There's a great soundtrack running throughout of this particular title, and who knows, you may even hear my dulcet tones singing along to one of the iconic Dream songs. Thank you to everyone who has been watching these, who has been thumbing them up, who has been commenting. I am really appreciative of everyone who takes their time out to listen to this. So let's get on with this particular podcast episode. To quote the Queen of Pop, Madonna, "Music makes the people come together. Music makes the bourgeoisie and the rebel." And I think there is a whole heap of truth here. Just look at a musical festival, heaving with a congregation of followers from all walks of life, worshipping their musical gods, chanting as one, moving as one. Music just seems to bring out the best in us, the universality of a shared experience coming together as one. But sometimes that experience can also take the shape of a solo affair. When I'm down and need of a musical pickup, Basement Jaxx' Do Your Thing is the only thing to bring me out of my slump, and I dance around a room like someone possessed. I cringe every time I hear Pet Shop Boys' Domino Dancing, as it vividly reminds me of an awkward college fumble as it played in the background. And also I tear up every time I hear Bonnie Raitt's Cry on My Shoulder, as I remember saying goodbye for the last time to my mother. As it played, the curtain drew closed. Music, beyond all other mediums, even through repeat listening, seems to have this long-lasting effect on the heart and the soul of a person. And music is a big player in this week's episode, through the obvious soundtrack being played through the whole of this issue, and maybe a couple of times you didn't pick up on. In today's world of comics, the idea of titles or characters crossing over between each other, tying into larger events, are the norm, and happen with, some may say, unswerving regularity, or whether the story demands it or not. Think Identity Crisis, Infinite Crisis, Countdown to Final Crisis, Flashpoint, Forever Evil, Convergence. Over at Marvel, you've got Atlantis Attacks, the Infinity Gauntlet, the Infinity War, Infinity Crusade, Civil War, Siege, Secret Wars. The list goes on and on. But once upon a time, the idea of characters meeting up from their own respective corners of the comic book universe and interacting with each other was somewhat of a novelty, and used sparingly for those important moments in comic book history. It's another reason as to what makes Neil Gaiman's run on The Sandman all the more special to me, despite the obstacles in using or not being able to use DC characters within these pages. Gaiman was always very meticulous and sparing when it came to drawing them into the dream world he created, which sat somewhere on the edges of the DC comic book universe. Gaiman understood what their place was to be here in his world and what they were to be used for, ensuring that there was either a connection, a similarity, or a common thread to the characters he introduced. No character fell out of place or misused, And it is with this issue that one of those characters starts the ball rolling for what was to come. Welcome to the SoftLands podcast, episode 3. My name is GhostCritic, and you're now entering the dreaming.
Stars shine bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper, I love you. Birds singing in the sycamore tree. Dream a little dream of me.
As we move on into issue 3 called Dream a Little Dream of Me, setting Dream off on his trio of quests to regain his belongings stolen from him in issue 1, Gaiman steals the reader a first glimpse at the dark side of playing with the power of dreams. The Sandman, as a complete piece of work, has always played around with genre, never sitting comfortably with just one, but instead diving its hands into the playbox, grabbing hold and bringing treasures into the Sandman's world of storytelling. With issue 1, Gaiman toyed with the supernatural and occult. In issue 2, with the world of fantasy, and while they both hinted at a horrific landscape, it is with issue 3 that we go balls to the wall with the horror genre in all its darkness and shadows. Straight off the bat, Gaiman provides us a textually graphic description of an addict to the sands of dream, not once showing the reader the full picture, but instead letting our imagination build the scene. Caring not for her appearance and health, covered in bed sores, skin flaking away to be infected and inflamed, hunger, now a dull pain in the back of her mind, nails broken, torn away, a woman counts up to her next hit. All the pain she's had, is in, and will endure, is nothing to the pleasure her addiction to the sand provides. All she questions is how she will administer her next ride. Hidden in the shadows of her bedroom, all the reader sees is a hand, and our imagination makes up the rest. Now, I said at the start of this week's podcast, this issue was all about the music. And as I read and reread this first page, describing the woman's body gradually decaying, I couldn't help but see a lyrical tone to it. From the very start, with her counting up to her next hit, 1, 2, 3, 4, as if we're being counted into the song. A song I like to call Counting to 100. So if we listen to the monologue, the lyrics, as it begins with the first verse, and think of someone like Trent Reznor's raspy rock voice from 9 Inch Nails as I read the first page. Her nipples are hard and dark and shrunken, on breasts like empty pouches. Her hair comes out in clumps when she moves. She tries not to move too much. Her skin is flaking, infected and inflamed. Bed sores cover her back and legs. Her fingernails grew long and brittle, then they broke off. The ragged nails rip her skin when she scratches. Her stomach shrank, then bloated, then it shrank again. Hunger subsided to a low nagging in the back of her mind. Then it comes to the start of the chorus, building to a crescendo. It's okay, it goes away, like the pain goes away, like everything goes away. When the dreams come, she feels reality ebbing back. She'll wait. Then you get that full-on rock screech. Delay the pleasure, delay the dreams, it doesn't matter. She's counting to 100. And just as she is about to reach 100, which marks the only sense of control she has over the delay of pleasure she will receive, we are rudely snapped out of the scene by an alarm clock going off. And for collectors of the For Mature Readers imprint of DC titles, a familiar face, that of John Constantine. John Constantine is one of those late 80s anti-hero creations beloved by Vertigo, and made his first appearance back in 1984 in issue 25 of the second volume of Swamp Thing. Constantine, a character created by the then creative team of Swamp Thing, Alan Moore and Stephen Bissett. Itself a title that would eventually find its way from that For Mature Readers label and brought into the Vertigo fold. Constantine was not to get his own title till 4 years later in 1988 with Hellblazer, and easily fits into the Sandman universe with his connections to the occult, magic and the supernatural. And Gaiman stays true to the character created by Moore and Bissett and then taken on by Jamie Delano, exploring and enriching the character once he got his own title. Gaiman pulls on strands of storylines that have already taken place in Hellblazer universe to great effect. The setting of London, the trench coat, the continual smoking of his brand of silk cut, the sarcastic banter, and above all, the darkness that always shrouds Constantine. It's all here. Constantine has already had a year's worth of occult adventures before showing up here in The Sandman, but despite his relative newness to readers, his appearance here is perfect. Throughout the build-up to who and what is coming, the event is signposted a great deal, to say the least. We, the reader, know, but Constantine does not. So it's with a reader's enviable position of knowing more than the character we are reading, we watch John attempt to make the links from the radio, jukebox, and TV, pumping out songs such as Dream a Little Dream of Me, first recorded back in 1931 but made hugely popular by Cass Elliot with the Mamas and the Papas. Mr. Sandman, a song from the early 50s sung by the Cordettes. Sweet Dream of You, a country ballad from the mid-50s sung originally by Don Gibson but more famously by country crossover star Patsy Cline. We get Sweet Dreams Are Made of This by the 80s synth band Eurythmics, and Dream Lover by the late 50s pop star Bobby Darin. It's not just the music leaving clues either, as we are introduced to a character brought into the Hellblazer universe back in issue 9, Mad Hetty. A tramp, for want of a better description, who may or may not be a witch. At the time we meet her, she claims to be the ripe old age of 247, and who flat out announces the Sandman's return. A notion that John scoffs at, rationalising Hetty's ranting as a fairy tale to make children go to sleep. But as their conversation ends, Constantine seems to doubt his own reasoning, thinking he should maybe look into it. In between all this, we view an unsuspecting burglar who gets a little more than he bargained for as he breaks into the home of the woman we glimpsed at the beginning of this issue. And we see that the power of the pouch of sand has reached farther than just the woman's body, and its grains have perhaps permeated the house itself, an idea that is confirmed later on in this issue, as he suddenly finds himself making love in the arms of a beautiful woman, then driving the car of his dreams, a Lamborghini, dying on the cross for the people who love and adore him, and eventually seeing himself in the Superman role. The basic needs and wants of this man is not surprising here. Sex, money, fame, adulation, and ending with ultimate power. Again, I find this scene and the monologue that runs over these 2 pages to be very lyrical in nature. I won't go over this page in detail again here, but go back to the issue, and I'm sure you'll hear it in your head as with the first page. As Constantine goes about his days, meaning to get round to this Sandman investigation, it's not till 3 days later that finally Dream makes his appearance in his usual deadpan manner. Not seeing his greeting, John Constantine, I presume, as remotely amusing. The Sandman gets right down to business. No introduction, no appeal for help, and no option. Despite his abruptness and sombre mood, you have to wonder if Dream does actually have some sense of humour, as Constantine comments on Dream's otherworldly attire, letting him know he won't be walking the streets of London with Dream dressed like that, to which Dream mimics to some extent what Constantine is wearing, with a dark blue-black trench coat, collar up. John takes Dream to a lockup which houses pretty much all of Constantine's life, and Gaiman is able to once again weave elements of the DC universe into his own tale, as we see volumes of what appear to be journals entitled Crisis, Liverpool, and Tibet, all events that John has been part of in other titles. It's these little touches that have always made the inclusion of the Sandman world in the DC universe feel that much more real. So it's through the accidental falling of a box of documents and photographs that set these two on the next leg of their journey, as John comes across a photograph of Rachel, a once squeeze of John's, who became a junkie and who sold all John's belongings while he was away in Alaska looking for werewolves. And of course, it is she that is now in possession of that pouch. Another fixture of the Hellblazer universe and Constantine's world is utilised here in the character Chaz, John's longest surviving friend. Where John is the brains, Chaz is the muscle. Chaz acts as a driver to get John where he needs to be most of the time, but Constantine is very protective of Chaz and rarely gets him involved in the more dangerous activities he finds himself in. And arriving at the house of Rachel is no exception, as Dream announces that not only is the pouch here, but also that the house is dangerous. And so Chaz is confined to the car as Dream and John enter. Despite Dream's warnings and advising John to stay outside, we readers of Hellblazer know that that isn't John's style. His curiosity is piqued, and he follows Dream in with his usual defence mechanism of sarcastic humour, as he is now intrigued by the girl of his dreams and what has happened to her. This is your classic haunted house scenario. Lights don't work. Shadowy staircases leading up to darkened corridors. What horror lies behind each door with an unseen menace ready to pounce at any second? And Gaiman, along with artists Sam Keith and Mike Dringenberg, do not disappoint. From the barely alive body of the burglar we had met earlier, now being eaten away by dreams. Constantine's nightmare of falling to his death, the sentient slime, once a human body spread from floor to ceiling, blocking passage to Dream's goal, that with but a sentence, "This has gone far enough, for you have exceeded your bounds," sends shivers through this demonic slime to the point they retreat and allow the two passage. You can almost smell John's sweat dripping from his brow, taste the fear overcoming him as he is assaulted by all these horrors. The gory absurdity of their journey through the house is that much more pronounced when Dream opens the final door, the reader expecting to witness the worst of the horrors. But actually, on opening the door, it's just a normal, plain bedroom where Rachel's voice speaks out, "John, is that you? I've had such a wonderful dream." And with the turn of the page, we see the devastating impact using the power of the pouch has had on her. As matter-of-factly as he arrived into this story, Dream retrieves the pouch and announces, "We can go now." There is no thought given to how Rachel will survive without the pouch to sustain her, and he knows that without it she will die. Painfully, I would imagine, he says, without any shred of humanity. It's not until Constantine implores Dream to not leave her like this that Dream gives her that one last dream where she's beautiful and walks into the horizon with her once lover John by her side before she dies. Before Dream leaves, John asks one last favour of him, a sort of payment for his help, you could say. And again, the connections to John's own life and comic title are intertwined as Gaiman draws in the Newcastle affair. Readers of Hellblazer will know what the connection is here. Ever since that catastrophe that happened, John has been having nightmares and asks for them to be eased. And in a surprising show of kindness, Dream makes it known that John will not be troubled by these nightmares again, as he disappears, leaving John to walk away singing the Chordettes' Mr. Sandman. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream, make her the cutest that I've ever seen. Give her the word that I'm not a rover, then tell her that my lonesome life is over.